Rudolph versus Allen, Monday. Now we're on Monday. Wildcard football, Orchard Park, Steelers, Bills. Welcome to the Blitz Show, brought to you by Covers with Derek Carty and his Blitz projections. Look to pick off the best plus EV plays for every game. Derek, it's been, I don't want to call it a disaster for bettors. We had positions on a lot of unders. I think a lot of people, hopefully in those books, were able to get out of those positions if they wanted to, but the change in venue really hasn't changed a lot in terms of the total. We're seeing 37 now. Bills still minus 10, and the prop market is somewhat similar with the change of date and the change of snow and a slight decrease in wind. What is the Blitz seeing so far from what we had on the Sunday, which is supposed to be the Sunday game, changing to the Monday game?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't like those unders as much as it did.
But we were talking about like what you thought was maybe one of the best projected underplays in Allen's under 19.5.
It was, the best play of the week. It was one of the best plays we'd seen certainly in several weeks, maybe all year. Like it projected really, really well. And now it's kind of crazy that the line really hasn't moved. Like it's the same as it's been. The Blitz now, though, instead of projecting like 15 completions, is closer to 18. So, Josh Allen, you can still get his completions under 19.5 around even money. That still shows a little value. Like if you bet that before, I wouldn't necessarily be trying to get out of that one. Like that's still a decent lean. It's just it's not what it was.
When I got my 2 units out of that. I wasn't risking 2 units on that play.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still, they are big favorites. They're gonna, they have projected to win by 10 points, so they should be running the ball. They've been running the ball a ton more since firing Ken Dorsey's offensive coordinator. There's still going to be a little bit of wind. There's going to be cold. There's the chance for some light snow if we're lucky. Yeah. Like there's still, I think, a little bit of value on that, but nowhere near what it was.
All right. Tell me about the value on this. Mason Rudolph under 0.5 touchdowns, plus 135, bet 365, time recording on Sunday. Lean or play in this situation for Rudolph?
It's so borderline. I think we'll call it a play, but it's borderline lean play. A lot of it just comes down to the Steelers are incredibly run heavy, especially since they switched offensive coordinators. Mason Rudolph is not very good. If they score touchdowns,
he went 18 for 20 last game.
18 for 20, but he threw them all 1 yard. You're not going to score a lot of passing touchdowns on 1 yard passes. If someone breaks one, sure. But for the most part, I think if they score, which their team total is like 13 or 14 points, more likely to come on the ground than anything else. And we're getting plus money here. So this is one where, the Blitz is projecting, what is the actual percentage here? I'll have to find it. But it's probably around like 56% win percentage. So 56% at plus 135 is solid value for sure. It's not as good as it would have been in snowy conditions, but this is one that has kind of moved since then. This was more like minus 110, minus 105, even money. Now that the game has moved, it's plus 135, but this is still a really low total for a Pittsburgh offense that is going to score the majority of their touchdowns on the ground anyway.
Yeah. Team total implied under 13.5 points. And you have to assume if they score a touchdown, I wrote it in my preview that if they're scoring a touchdown, there's at least a 50% chance that Najee Harris is going to run that in. That's kind of where I was on that situation. So I think we're in the same boat here. Plus 135 for a 55% win percentage is something we take all the time here on the Blitz. Little value on James Cook under, but we're staying away from it. The market has moved. What was your thoughts on the thoughts on moving away from the Cook under carries?
Yeah, so when we talked about it yesterday, like right after the venue changed and we were trying to come up with some new stuff, the line was under 16.5 carries minus 120 or something like that. It's 15.5 everywhere now. Minus 103 is the best line. It's decent in part because the pace for this game projects to be very slow. But They are big favorites. It is the playoffs. They might lean on him more. I think there's more uncertainty with them. They have, like I said, they have been a lot more run heavy since going away from Ken Dorsey. Last week, Lenny
Yeah,
Fournette.
I was going to say, what are your Lenny Fournette?
Yeah, he worked in a lot, but is that going to continue in a must-win game in the playoffs? Like there's just too much uncertainty for me for a play that kind of projects on the borderline to start with.
There certainly is. Like even in the running back distributions, if you saw Cook get 12 carries and Fournette with 8, you wouldn't really be surprised. And it's obviously going to come down to a lot of things. But I like the idea of getting away from the uncertainty of what the Buffalo run game is. You're projecting them to be slow. You're projecting them to run, but there is some uncertainty in the distribution of carries. So I like that. So let's just go Mason Rudolph under 0.5 TDs plus 135. If you had the Allen, he says don't get out, but like you're not getting the same value that you had on the under 19.5 completion. So
I would get out on. We did talk about, for anyone who saw me post it or whatever, we did the Allen over rushing yards. That I would probably get out on. That actually shows some negative EV at this point.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, but yeah, there was a lot of love for the over just because it was going to be even run heavier because of the conditions. So, an interesting spot for bettors having to pivot if they can get out of their positions. I suggest maybe just doing a reset if you're not sitting with plus EV or not sitting with the better number and maybe just sitting with something else like Mason Rudolph under 0.5 passing TDs plus 135. Let's wrap up this session of the wild card. We'll be back for the divisionals. I'm Josh Ingles. He's Derek Carty. This is the Blitz Show brought to you by Covers. We'll see you back here next Saturday.